Absolutely not. They were busy trying to deny that government has a hand in, or there is any form of Christian genocide going on in Nigeria. As if once you are able to convince Trump that there is no Christian genocide going on in Nigeria, then everything is fine. That is the impression you get from what they are saying, right? Then you go beyond that, you begin to hear actually.
Today, we're tackling a story that is critically underreported in the mainstream media, but has life or death consequences for millions. We're talking about Nigeria, a nation on the brink, and the explosive intervention by President Donald J. Trump. That's right. This isn't just a regional conflict. It's a story of mass persecution, political intrigue, and a stark moral contrast in leadership. It all blew up with a single, powerful statement from President Trump. Let's start with the tweet that put the world on notice. What did President Trump say? It was unequivocal. He wrote, "Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter." He didn't mince words, and he backed it up with action. He announced he was designating Nigeria a country of particular concern, or CPC. For our listeners, what does that designation actually mean? It's a formal label under the U.S. International Religious Freedom Act for nations that engage in or tolerate systematic, ongoing, egregious violations of religious freedom. It's the State Department's strongest condemnation. And Trump didn't stop there. He instructed the Pentagon to prepare for possible action and threatened to cut U.S. aid. He put real teeth behind the warning. He even cited the numbers in his tweet: 3,100 Christians killed in Nigeria out of 4,476 worldwide in a given period. It shows he was looking at the hard data. This wasn't an off-the-cuff remark. Exactly. He was making it clear that the United States, under his leadership, would not stand by. He said, "We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world." It was a direct challenge to the Nigerian government, led by President Bola Tinubu. And the data Trump was looking at is horrifying. Let's talk about the scale of this persecution. What are the numbers telling us? The numbers are staggering and paint a picture of what can only be described as a genocide in slow motion. One report from 2025 states that an average of 30 Christians are murdered each day in Nigeria. 30 a day. That's more than one every hour. It's almost impossible to comprehend. It is. Another report found that over 7,000 Christians were killed in just the first 220 days of 2025. The perpetrators are well-known, radical Islamist groups like Boko Haram and Fulani herdsmen militants. This isn't random crime, it's targeted, systematic violence. We've seen the stories. Entire villages burned, churches attacked during services, priests kidnapped and murdered. Holy Week, a sacred time for Christians, was dubbed a massacre week in 2024. It's a level of brutality that is being largely ignored. And what was the response from the Nigerian government under President Tinubu? He essentially denied it. He said the characterization of Nigeria as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality. It's a complete disconnect from the facts on the ground, which makes President Trump's direct condemnation all the more vital. This is where the story takes an even more sinister turn. While Christians are being slaughtered, the Tinubu administration recently announced a list of presidential pardons. And the list is revealing, to say the least. In October 2025, the administration granted mercy to over 60 individuals. You would think in a country where a religious group is under such attack that some of the victims or those unjustly imprisoned would be on that list. But they weren't. We've analyzed the names on that pardon list. The overwhelming majority are Muslim names, primarily from the north of Nigeria. People convicted of everything from drug trafficking and illegal mining to corruption. Let's be specific. You have dozens of men with names like Abdullahi, Abubakar, Ibrahim, Yusuf, and Hamza convicted of serious crimes, who are now walking free. For instance, about 60 legal minors, almost all with Muslim names, were pardoned. A former high-ranking politician, Farouk Lawan, a Muslim convicted of corruption, was pardoned. And how many Christians were on this list of 60-plus pardons? Our research indicates none. Not a single one among the recent high-profile pardons. A few individuals with Christian-sounding names were on a much larger initial list of 175, but the final revised list of 60 is stark in its exclusion. The message it sends is chilling. And that brings us to the most glaring omission, the most potent symbol of this injustice. Nnamdi Kanu is the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, or IPOB. He is a Christian and a vocal supporter of Israel. He has been held in a detention facility by the Nigerian government since 2021. And crucially, he has never been convicted of a crime. He's been imprisoned for years without a conviction. So, on one hand, you have convicted criminals, mostly Muslims, being pardoned and set free by President Tinubu. On the other, you have an unconvicted Christian activist who remains locked up. The injustice is breathtaking. Kanu's legal case is a sham. He's representing himself in court now, and he's arguing, based on a Supreme Court ruling from December 2023, that the very charges against him are legally dead. The Supreme Court ordered the government to amend the charges, and they simply disobeyed the order. So the government is ignoring its own Supreme Court to keep a Christian, pro-Israel leader in prison. Correct. Kanu himself stood in court and said no written law equals no offense, no charge, no trial, and no detention. I should not be here. He is, by any definition, a political prisoner. A prisoner of conscience. So let's connect these dots. What picture does this create? It creates a picture of a government that is, at best, willfully blind to the genocide happening within its borders, and, at worst, complicit. You have a government that denies the persecution of Christians while simultaneously refusing to pardon a single Christian in a major clemency action. And at the same time, they are holding a prominent Christian leader indefinitely without a valid conviction, while releasing convicted felons who largely share the same religious and regional background as the ruling establishment. It's a pattern of behavior. And it's this pattern that President Trump so clearly identified and called out. He saw the persecution, he saw the government's inaction, and he refused to stay silent. This is why Trump's intervention is so critical. Without that international pressure, the Tinubu administration would be able to continue this pattern with no accountability. Absolutely. The CPC designation, the threat of sanctions, the public condemnation, these are the only things that governments like Tinubu's understand. It puts a global spotlight on their actions. It forces them to answer for the pardons, for the detention of Nnamdi Kanu, for the thousands of dead Christians. It's a testament to President Trump's America First foreign policy, which, as he demonstrated, doesn't mean America alone. It means leading with strength to protect American values and allies, including the great Christian population around the world. And it draws a stark contrast. While the current U.S. administration has been largely silent, Trump acted decisively. He used the tools of American power to defend the persecuted. It's a moral clarity that has been sorely missing. So, what happens now? What should we be demanding? The path forward is clear, and it follows the roadmap President Trump laid out. First, the international community, led by the U.S., must intensify the pressure on the Tinubu administration. The CPC designation must be followed by concrete sanctions targeting the officials responsible for these human rights abuses. Second, the immediate and unconditional release of Nnamdi Kanu, a man held for years without a conviction, in defiance of the country's own Supreme Court, is an outrage. His freedom must be a non-negotiable demand. Third, there must be an independent international investigation into the Christian genocide in Nigeria. The world needs to see the full scope of the slaughter, and the perpetrators must be brought to justice. The Nigerian government has proven it is unwilling or unable to do this itself. And finally, the issue of the pardons needs to be highlighted. The hypocrisy of releasing convicted criminals while persecuting an innocent man tells you everything you need to know about the priorities of the Tinubu government. This is not a complex issue. It is a clear case of good versus evil. It is a fight for religious freedom, for human rights, and for the very survival of Christianity in Nigeria. President Trump had the courage to say it. Now, the world must have the courage to act. That's all the time we have for the deep dive today. The situation in Nigeria is a stark reminder that the fight for freedom is far from over. We will continue to follow this story and bring you the truth. Join us next time as we continue to uncover the stories that matter. Thanks for listening.